Hello, thanks for stopping by. Joe Zimhart here again. It's June 27th, 1924. Someone recently and sometime in the past asked me to define better what I mean by overvalued ideas or beliefs and why it's so important to know the distinction between them and delusions or false beliefs and just plain conspiratorial thinking, or what we call folie à deux, or the idea that cult leaders shared delusions about, say, life on Mars is accepted by the group because they believe in the leader so much. And I'm specifically referring to Rudolf Steiner, who taught back in the early part of the 20th century that there indeed was a civilization on Mars and that the Christ, as a cosmic principle, sent the Buddha to Mars to convert Martians to become Buddhists. So we've learned a lot about the planet since those days, and despite Rudolf Steiner's super sensible awareness, he was way out of line in terms of his thinking and basically overvalued his abilities as a super sensible being. So let's get back to a definition. An overvalued idea is something that comes more from British mental health manuals than American. You don't find it in the old diagnostic systems manuals in American psychiatry or psychology. They talk about delusions and they talk about false beliefs and they talk about, being way off track with what you believe and think, but they don't specify what overvalued beliefs is, whereas in the UK they did. And I found this out when I worked in a psychiatric hospital from an African psychiatrist who was educated in England. And when we got discussing about my cult issues, he said, well, it sounds like a lot of the problems that the people you have, isn't mental illness, it's overvalued beliefs, overvalued ideas. And I looked it up and he gave me a book about that kind of diagnosis. And I looked at it. So let's look at the definition online. Overvalued ideas, or OVI, are unreasonable and persistent beliefs that are not delusional or obsessional, but they can be preoccupying to the point of dominating a person's life. They are often associated with idealized values that can become so important that they define a person's identity. People who overvalued ideas may have difficulty adapting to different circumstances and may ignore the consequences of acting on their values. All right, so another way to look at this is here. I pulled this out of a clinical website, which I'll link up for you. Clinicians should be aware that the form and content of beliefs are critical to analyze with the proper definitions to separate delusional beliefs from passionately held beliefs with an intense emotional commitment, such as overvalued ideas. All right, so once I learned this, I began applying this to my work as a occult exit counselor, and it worked very well to help people sort out. I'm not crazy for believing that Reverend Moon is the Messiah, but I may have overvalued it. And let's look at that. Let's look at the history. Let's look at why you're doing that. So those are the questions that can come up. Another way to look at this is from a cultural standpoint. You've all probably heard of the god Ganesh, the elephant-headed god with four arms, one of the most popular manifestations of Vishnu in India. And you see Ganesh, for instance, on little statues or pictures of Ganesh that bus drivers put on their dashboards. In other words, the god is said to be the remover of obstacles. So if you keep a Ganesh in your house, you'll have less chance of having obstacles in your life, if you believe in that energy. But, there's an indication in the culture to only keep one Ganesh in your house and not to overdo it. In other words, to overvalue this sort of thing. Let me give you an example. These are two very modern forms of Ganesh. And it was given to me as a gift when I was in India on a case, and I got both of them at the time. So, I mean, I display both of them. I'm not a believer in the religious aspect of it. I don't value it more than it being a cultural artifact, and I can appreciate why other people value it as a spiritual artifact. So in my circumstance, having two Ganeshas or three or models is more like a collection than a religious devotion. So I don't have a religious devotion to that sort of thing. You might say from a Hindu point of view, I undervalue, those objects. But in any case, in terms of the cultic aspects of overvaluing, which isn't discussed very much among my peers, that state of mind or that behavior, that activity of overvaluing always comes in when people get too immersed in some kind of a self-help therapy. Meditation can be overvalued. Let me give you an example. Transcendental meditation gives you all these reasons and secret mantras and whatever to begin their process of meditating, and you actually go through a kind of a religious ritual with Guru Dev, a picture of Guru Dev, and you leave a gift, an orange or flower or whatever, during the initiation ceremony that's supposed to be, quote, secular and scientific, right? So the idea there is that you can up your meditation. You can do more meditation in order to gain benefits, and some of the benefits are to gain brainwave coherence. And when you gain brainwave coherence, after a lot of experiences and practice in meditation, you can levitate, or you can send peace to the world and affect the way a war is going. You can change the weather. In other words, it becomes this almost like charismatic prayer to Christians, becomes this weapon to affect nature, natural forces, to heal at a distance. And even, whether they like to admit it or not, if you can heal, you can harm at a distance. So it goes both ways. But is it overvalued? Well, of course it is. There's no proof that any of this works to heal or to harm from a distance. So, some of the studies that have been done on meditation, one of them is by Benson, called the relaxation response. This came out decades ago, shows that you can get the same benefits that TM claims from a lot of meditations and their specific system, which they sell as a business, from just a simple meditation technique, like, let's say, concentrating on a candle burning, or some kind of a picture that you like, or just your breath. For 5 to 10 minutes, that's all you need. I mean, to gain the benefits of meditation, you do not need to overdo it, to overvalue it. In fact, overvaluing something like meditation can actually cause neurological damage. You can become so involved in the internal world that it can trigger dream-like reactions, and when you trigger that in the waking state, you can hallucinate. The dreams will become real. You will see things. You will see people, angels, or whatever, and you might even start hearing voices, even though you're not schizophrenic. This has been documented. I've known people that are in TM, for instance, for a decade or 15 years, and quit and needed to go through extensive therapy in order to stop the voices, in order to stop these waking dreams. So overdoing meditation can be harmful. Not to everybody, obviously, but it can be. So in my last video, I discussed Aurobindo, and in my estimation, he overdid it, and he overdid the prophecy angle, that that getting into that altered state and going into levels and layers of meta mentation, of supramental consciousness is what he called it. He may have gone overboard and not chosen wisely when he chose this woman that came to him in 1914 and declared her the mother, as if they were kindred spirits and realized the same energy, the same super consciousness. So they did some experiments. In my view, basically failed because they overvalued what they were doing, and their disciples, like in a folia do, sharing in the same delusion or the same overvalued ideas, begin to think that they can become a new species or can help the human race become a new species through integral yoga or whatever. So that's where that comes in. That's where the overvaluation of a spiritual technique or whatever can happen. For instance, I can look at the Catholic tradition, my tradition, that tends to encourage saint worship, the cult of saints. Now, all right, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that in terms of people, glomming onto, say, Saint Michael, the archangel, the great protector, and someone that will protect you from evil or whatever, and having that as a way to reduce your anxiety about the evil in the world, and maybe even to tune into how to help people prevent wars, or at least think about it. But when you think that your decrees, like we used to do in Church Universal and Triumphant, to Archangel Michael, the Ascended Master, and we would do decrees to Michael for, say, 2 hours at a time, and that energy could then be used by Michael as if I was sending them gas in a tank, and use that energy to end a war, or stop a fire, or divert a volcano from blowing up, or whatever. That is overvaluing that. Now you're getting into Harry Potter territory, where you wave a magic wand and say a mantra, and zap, something knocks your opponent over on the ground. Now you're getting into fantasy land, and the whole concept of occult or phenomenological powers can become way overvalued, and in fact get into the point of delusion and psychosis in some cases, if somebody believes in it too much and it gets fixated. Some people can have negative results from that kind of behavior, because certainly if you can do it to others, they can do it to you. So if you can send that energy out to others to stop them from doing something, well, then you have the war of the black magicians. This is the kind of thing that Aleister Crowley promoted, for instance. He thought that he was one of these grand occultists that could harness the power of psychic energies and do stuff to people. And then there were people around him that testified, wow, when he looked at me, I couldn't move. All right, well, I've heard thousands of stories like that, and I know for a fact that if Aleister Crowley looked at me, I can move. It depends on your state of mind and how suggestible you are to that kind of thing. And if you're highly suggestible to it, if you believe in that world, well, then things will happen to you, and you'll see things happening, and you'll experience things, and you might end up in a very paranoid universe as a result of it, which I'm not in. But at one time I was. When I was in Church Universal and Triumphant, we overvalued these powers and energies through our decreeing and the way it was all taught, so that I was living in that magical world of changing my fate, of healing at a distance, of even using that power to stop evil in the world. And if evil wouldn't stop, well, it might get killed, because it's their own karma that I'm bringing back to them. It's not me asking them to be killed. It's their persistence in their evil that's getting the karma to be increased. This is how it was explained. And that is a highly overvalued explanation. There's no proof for it. In fact, all the evidence shows that that doesn't work. So I'm hoping this helps. I'll put in some links and maybe a better explanation in my description to help you along with this. So if you have any comments, please leave your comments. Thank you very much, and enjoy your day.